story is called Running Repairs. Ani had never lived in a house that didn't have the hole. A neat doorknob-shaped puncture with a flapping plaster mouth. The hole lived mainly behind bathroom doors. Her dad made those holes, and nobody fixed them because it would be only a week or so before they'd reappear. They didn't worry or embarrass her because she'd seen plenty of the same holes at her friends' and cousins' places too. They were part of the scenery. Their houses were like cattle, all bearing the same brand. Now she had her own house with its very own hole. The first trip to the hardware store that morning had been more embarrassing than the first time she'd bought condoms. Ani had lunged for a tall aerosol can that promised expanding foam and hurried it to the checkout. Back home, when she'd stuck the long nozzle in the hole-punched wall, yellow foam had erupted from the end like soft-served ice cream with no cone to cling to. It slopped straight down, lost forever to the dark gap between the walls. The wall was hungry. She emptied the whole can into the cramped space without any effect. That's when she seriously considered calling and asking her koro how to fix it. The family would be celebrating and preparing for winter now. Time for repairs, her Nan would say. Nan would be sitting in the kitchen in the chair with the best light overlooking the bay. Her head with its soft white cotton puff of hair bent over her hands, and next to her a pile of clothes for mending. If Ani had been there, she would have thread Nan's needle and they would have sat, silver needles stabbing and weaving while Nan talked and Ani listened. This time of year, they would be matariki stories. Stories of ancestors spending long winter nights, mending precious possessions, nets and lures, clothes and kete that had suffered the wear and tear of summer. Nan would say something like, "Back then you didn't just throw things away just because they were old. You preserved the things you already had." Koro would be climbing his ladders, fixing the leaks, and Nan would complain every time his hammer beat the roof. Koro would know how to fix a wall, but no, she couldn't bring herself to call. Her koro was proud of her. His eldest moko moved to the city to be with her handsome husband and his great job. Fresh from her honeymoon, he would be expecting a happy voice down the line, and she didn't know if she could manage that. She went on YouTube instead, found out how to fix it properly, and made a list of things she'd need. She headed back to the hardware store with its tall church-like ceilings and rows of meticulous shelves stacked with potential. She traced her list with a fingertip and found the first thing on it, stopping compound. She slid a heavy white tub off the bottom shelf that was probably 10 times more than she'd need. But she didn't have to worry about cost today. "Get whatever you need, babe," he'd said, like it was a grand gesture, as if fixing the wall was her treat. She wondered if she should get a full set of tools for the house too. She knew she had at least a week of calm where she could buy anything at all and he wouldn't mention it. It was always a good time to stock up. A guy, likely the first and only person on this earth to look good in the brilliant orange of the staff shirt, stepped up to her. "Need any help?" Early 20s, bronze skin, green eyes, nice forearms. She shook her head and said she was okay. Green Eyes didn't give up, and after a peek over her shoulder at her list, sagely guessed a hole in the wall just like that. "Small?" "Yes, small." Green Eyes searched hers. "I'll get you an offcut." He made L shapes with his long fingers to show her how much he thought she'd need. He took the tub from her without asking and led her around the store, checking off her list one item at a time. He even swapped the giant tub for a smaller one she hadn't seen and said he'd chuck in the offcut for free. She was enjoying the easy silence and his aftershave when they stopped for him to pluck something small from a shelf and hand it to her. "Doorstop," he said, "just screws in. It'll protect your wall next time." She didn't like the way he put the emphasis on wall or the way he knew there'd be a next time. Green Eyes met brown, and suddenly she was sure that he had grown up in houses with holes in them too. He took her to the counter, punched through her purchases himself. Their fingers touched when he took her EFTPOS card and told her to come again. She gathered her bags and didn't look back. It was time for repairs. Kia ora, thank you.
Hi, I'm Amber. This one's called Crushes. You held out your hands, spread fingers to ready the catch, feet planted as cool wind and chairs hovered over you. One of the defenders had caught up and warded me from a shot, but I saw Peter. Pre-game, his hand in yours, and aikos grow like black mold. This one is called Secrets, and it's for Matariki. The stars rise, roll over like twisting tongues. Tangata whenua have been warned, and Papa Tuanuku, infertile in their light, lets winter spread through barren limbs. No one tells my secrets but me, she soothes, as lore of the land bleeds down from Matariki. And this last one is appropriately called Pride. She tilts her hat up to see a man in white with a black pocketbook reading out this week's donations. Amen. Thank you.
And this poem reflects my own pride in coming from a piece of paradise we call Tokomaru Bay, which is in Te Tai Rāwhiti, which is the east coast. And this poem is in the book which Anton has edited, and it's called Ngā Tai Rāwhiti. By night, you polish smooth, silent, sandy darkness as a glassy bridge, spanning infinite distances for feet to tread the universe and leapfrog galactic reflections of stars and luminescent creatures, dino-flagellating sexual display, protesting rude interruptions, predation, and bother. And now by day, unsatiable patterns of bejeweled brilliance fracture your surface 1,000,000 times or more, sparkle and burst between floating toes, light and time in motion, as citations of pleasure, risk, and discovery. You seed incremental shifts of energy as endless lines of influx and recession, marked terrain for feet to follow, of debris ripped from the ocean floor, rinsed, sorted, and set aside for gulls to peck at and insects to devour. Turning fetid in the heat, gracious kelp garlands of yours slither across the sand in lamenting gestural freezes, before being tossed further onto higher ground to rot far from reckless, clinging roots. But you also gift shells, wood, seeds of mangrove and plastic remains of distant habitations and carelessness, histories and secret thoughts of frequent storms, winds ravaging islands of tragic beauty, also offered here, are reduced to traceries of dramatic sediment, proximal regurgitations of froth and foam. Land to sea to land, a multitude of voices, ngā tini, ngā mano. From whenua, washes of sustenance infuse embryonic stagings with capacities to rehearse, revisit, and configure innumerable shifts in register. A multitude of voices. Your rhythms add aching scours to rain-cleaved fissures on storm-whipped cliffs, shedding giants to wither in the aftermath of lovers retreating. Your turnings lament coast miles of skeletal remains, stark beauties outreach histories of Maumau and Nukutorua, singing solemn passages to those who filtered through bloodied sand and sedimented their loss upon reefs of intrepid return, taking away and also bringing forth never-ending beginnings, mornings of devastation. Return of fragmented rock to particular sand, draining fragments of former selves to heart-heavy, wind-swept dunes. You shore up and tumble high, lumbering sun-bleached pilings upon childhood memories of bonfired celebrations and digging holes. Tossed further to dune by dog-loving masters, stone-fondled caresses search for your abraded tales of comfort. How far did you travel, soaked heavy pine, drunken beer crate, fence post? Once were guardians of food stores and havens are forced to scurry and scramble from receding cliff edges. Bastions that once offered protection. Dismembered limbs roll to the incoming tide and head to shore. Ancestral faces cast new nets for shadows upon the milky path of rising moons. Kia ora.